episode 8 of season 2 of Tired SportsPage. I'm your host, Angelina Lopez, and we're joined today by our school district's chief videographer, Tanielian. Hello, sir. How are you?
Great. How about you?
I'm doing good. We're going to talk today about media coverage of high school sports and some of the behind the scenes of how to properly do that to tell a visual, compelling story. But first, we're going to start a segment off by giving us a 1-minute autobiography of yourself.
Yeah, it's fortunately very simple. So I got started in AV in high school, just like you. Went to college for it, got a master's for it, then got my first job. Then from there, moved to Dallas for a job that I was not qualified for at NBC5. Wrote them a cover letter and made them a tape telling them I was not qualified for the job, but should they ever need somebody like me, I was a one-person band at the time, that I would be somewhere in the country doing that. Mm-hmm. And they said, yeah, you know what, you wouldn't know it by what you saw on our website, but we are looking for someone like you. When can we talk to you? So I flew out to what would then be my future boss's office in 3 or 4 days, and then in 5 weeks after that, I was in Texas, and then here I am.
Great. Our district has a large and diverse athletic programs. Lots of different students playing lots of different sports. That's a lot of different coverage styles. Let's talk about the micro, big picture of covering all that before we get more general and micro with each individual sport. Tell us about the visual covering this many varied sports.
Yeah, when you look at it at first, it can be very intimidating until you try to make something big very small. And the way that you do that is no matter what sport you're covering, you're following a ball. Now, the balls move differently depending upon the sport, but the first thing you want to do is to be able to just become aware and sort of used to the dance or the rhythm of what the sport is. Because once you do that, you'll be able to put yourself in a place to not get all of the highlights, but at least most of them. I mean, even I miss 2 or 3 highlights per game depending upon what's going on because it's sports. You never know exactly what the highlight's going to be or how an athlete may very much overperform and do something that you've never seen before. There's no way to prepare for that. So once you do that, then you begin to figure out, well, okay, how does this team gel? How do they work together? How are they passing the ball? Or where does the teamwork come in? So then you start to figure out, well, okay, if this person's got the ball, they're probably going to be looking for these 2 or 3 people. They might move it that way, might move it this way. So the more that you cover a certain sport, you're able to anticipate the future, the more that you actually cover it. In terms of different sports, again, if all you do is just get used to following however that ball moves, that's going to be 75% of what you're looking to do. The other 25 is getting to know the sport and where we're at stacked district-wide and statewide and all the cool feature kinds of stories that come through the coach or through the players and things like that.
This is a podcast, a notoriously visual medium, but we're also on YouTube. Please show us what you have and how and where you use each piece. Please start with your go-to pieces and then move on more to a specialized pieces.
Yeah, so here, basically to cover sports, all you need is a camera and a telephoto lens. So you see the camera body here, that's the square part there. And this is the telephoto lens, and telephoto is just a fancy word for that, it zooms. This one's pretty basic. It's 24 millimeter to 105 millimeter. So to sort of put that into terms that anybody could understand, the human eye sees at about 50, 55 millimeters. 24 is good because you can see a lot of stuff wide, but without it going fisheye or barrel distortion that you'll get on an action camera, because the eye doesn't see that way. So what's cool with this is I can be on the sidelines anywhere for any sport and at least zoom in a little bit to sort of make the whole team, half a team, or maybe 3 or 4 players, depending upon where they're at on the field. I cannot zoom in enough on this to single out a player or to single out the ball to really get in there. That's going to be something like a 100 to 400, a 200 to 400, the 60 to 600 for those who really like following the stuff. That's a cool lens because 60, if you're covering football or track, that keeps you wide enough to where you're going to pretty much see everything. And 600 is if they're literally at the other side of the track, yards and yards and yards away, you can follow them from shoulder height up and watch them around corners. That's cool stuff, yeah. But again, a really basic telephoto, however you get it, there's going to be 24s to 105s. You may find a 28 to 70. You could find typically 50 to 150. any of those for sports, those are a really good place to start.
How did you learn how to properly cover everything to get the most compelling images or videos, or to tell the visual story?
Yeah, so for that, it's just doing it over and over and over again. Another great
So
place
practice.
now, it really is, yeah, just putting yourself in situations to where you have to learn and knowing that you're not going to get it all right the first time. So there have been times where even still now, if I'm covering a specific sport that I've never covered before, I'll go to YouTube and look up videographers who've done it. There are people that, they attach a GoPro to their camera to film them while they're filming. I attach a 360 camera to do the same thing because I coach and teach professionals to do this stuff as a part of my business. So really, if you have any questions about how to do anything, look it up on YouTube first. It's really easy to be able to decipher now the people who aren't so good at it to people who are truly professional and are making really serious content in that area. I've taken deep dives into football and basketball and track.
Are those your favorite sports?
They are because we win.
Oh.
So they're the ones I cover the most, so
Okay.
by default, yes. So, yeah.
Looking at your schedule, what are the games you're most looking forward to and why?
Really, it's all of them because I approach it more from a feature story point of view than a sports point of view. Of course, I want us to win.
Yes.
But I'm also looking for what are, some side stories, one, in case that we don't, but also two, it's always nice to lead with with a story that is independent of the win. And if we win, that's fantastic. That will amplify that story even more. But to be able to talk about how the team works, how the community supports the team. Some of these coaches have been with us forever. I mean, some of these coaches have assistant coaches who have played for them on the come up. So there's some really interesting stuff if people really go and research our teams.
Thank you so much. Have I forgotten to ask you anything, or would you like to add anything?
No, this has been great.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in this week. Come back next week as we interview once again our head football coach, Leon Paul. Those of you listening to the podcast on your favorite podcast app, either Apple Podcasts or iHeart or Spotify, please like and rate us. That will allow us to appear higher and gain more listeners. If you're watching the YouTube feed, which comes out a bit later than the audio feed, please like and subscribe to the channel. You'll be notified every time we post a new video. Tiger Sports Page is a production of the Weibo Podcast Network. It produces with the cooperation of the Lancaster ISD Department of Athletics and the Lancaster ISD Department of Communications. Thank you again, and thank you for listening and watching. I'm Angelina, and we'll see you next week. Bye.